Hello students, continuing with our chapter number 11, Visual Basic Operators and Functions. Last time we have discussed about what are the variables and what are constants. And today we are going to talk about the data types. Now what actually data type means? As we know, when we make a variable, we can store any type of value in the variable. We can store numbers, we can store date, we can store time, we can store text. So we see that the nature of all these value is different from each other. So therefore, in order to explain the variable, what type of data is going to be held in it, we make use of data type. And accordingly, when we will be giving the data type, then the procedure will take place. So what are the common data types that are used in the Visual Basic? The very first data type is integer data type. Integer data type is going to store the numbers, the numeric values. But remember that these numeric values cannot contain decimal values. That means if you have given the data type as integer and you will enter the value like 30.2 or 50.1, that will not be possible because integer data type cannot store decimal values. And the range for storing the data in integer data type is from minus 32,768 to 32,767. Then next we have the another data type, that is long data type. Long data type is just same as the integer data type. That means it can also not store the decimal values. Decimal values are not going to be stored in this also, but the difference is that the range becomes wide. You can see in the integer we have the range from only minus 32,768 to 32,767. But if we are taking it as a long, you can see that the range increased. So more range is to be given, long data type is to be taken. Moving ahead, we have another type of data type, single data type. Now single data type is going to be used if you want to store floating point numbers. Floating point numbers mean with the decimal. If you are using the numbers with the decimal, then we will be using single. And if the floating point number exceeds the range of single precision, then it is rounded off to the last decimal place. So the range is for the negative numbers, we can store from minus 3.402823 into 10 to the power 38 to 1.401298 into 10 to the power minus 45. And if we are storing the positive numbers with the single data type, the range is 1.401298 into 10 to the power minus 45 to 3.402823 into 10 to the power 38. So this is the range that is going to be stored with a single data type. Next data type is double. Double is just as same as single, but it will store a range that is double of the floating numbers. Double to the floating numbers, if is to be stored, that is going to be stored with the double data type. Then comes string. String is especially for the alphanumeric characters. When you have to store alphanumeric characters like the name of someone, name of a place, you are going to store it using the data type string. You cannot store your name in the integer data type because that is exclusively meant for the numeric. If alphanumeric is to be stored, then string data type is to be used. And we can store up to 2 billion characters in that. Next we have date. Itself, it is indicating date. That means this data type is used with the variable where we are going to represent a date and the time values. whenever you have to store a date or any of the time value in a variable, you will be making use of the date data type, and the range of the data type is 100, that is 1st January 100 to 31st December 9999. You can store the dates which fall within this range. And the last type of data type is the Boolean data type. Boolean data type will be used wherever you have to store the answer in yes or no. Or I say, if you have to store the answer as true or false, you will be using Boolean data type. Next we have, how are we going to use these variables and how are we going to use the data types? Before using any kind of variable, we first need to tell Visual Basic through the coding that this is a variable. And this very procedure of telling that this is a variable is known as declaring a variable. We call it as declaring a variable. So while we declare a variable, actually what happens in the Visual Basic is a space is reserved in the memory. A space is reserved in the memory of the computer for storing the value in that variable. And to declare the variable, we have to make use of a special type of command which is known as dim command or dim statement. Along with the dim statement, we are going to make use of a clause that is called as integer. Here we are defining this data type or the object type of the variable beforehand. We are not declaring it within the program, within the main coding, whereas we are declaring it beforehand. Therefore, this type of declaration is known as explicit declaration. Now, so you can see the syntax of a variable. How we are going to declare a variable is, first we need to write down the dim statement, then we need to write down the variable name, then we need to write down as data type. So let us see the example. First the dim statement is to be written. Here dim statement is written. Then variable name is to be given. In this case I took the variable name as number. In this case I took it as name. In this case I took it as current date. See, dim statement is going to be common in every declaration. You have to make use of the dim statement. Now when we declare it, when we make it, see, we have taken three different variables. One is named as number, another name, then the current date. So as you can see, these three are going to store different type of values. Obviously number is going to store a numeric variable, numeric data. Name is going to store alphabets and current date is going to store date. So if it is a number, we have to take the data type as integer. Because we are not storing the decimal numbers. But in case if you are storing the decimal numbers, you will make it as float. Then it will become dim number as float. Then second is the name. So I said we are going to store the name in this, and that is going to be the character. So therefore the data type is as string. And the current date, it is going to store the date. So therefore the data type is as date. So this is about declaring a variable. And the next variable, we will be seeing the string variable declaration and assigning the values to the variable.